Blind Citizens Australia proudly presents the An Eye to the Future Business Workshop Series. Reasonable Adjustments and Assistive Technology in the Workplace. Hosted by Blind Citizens Australia with special guest Peter Cracknell.
So, as always, let's begin with our acknowledgement to country. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands that we are all coming from today for this physically dispersed meeting. I am coming to you from the Gadigal lands of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging, and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of Australia. As we gather today for this physically dispersed meeting, let us just take a moment now to reflect upon the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognise the various traditional lands on which we gather today. Okay, so my name is Claire. I am a project officer with Eye to the Future. With us today, we have my colleague Maddie, who is also a project officer with Eye to the Future. And independent to BCA, we have our guest speaker, Peter from Quantum, who we will hear from shortly. And Eye to the Future is an initiative from Blind Citizens Australia that recognises the career potential of people who are blind or vision impaired. This initiative is made possible by a funding grant from the Department of Social Services. We support job seekers with job readiness, including the job search, resume and cover letter preparation, interview preparation, and we also offer one-to-one discussions and mentoring throughout the employment process. We work closely with employers like you, providing education and awareness workshops and tailored training sessions to support employers to create accessible and inclusive workplace cultures and practices. This includes helping employers to really think differently about their recruitment and employment processes and providing advice and guidance on hiring someone who is blind or vision impaired in their workplace. Once a person who is blind or vision impaired has employment, we can continue our support for both the employer and employee as they settle into the workplace. In today's workshop, we are going to hear from an assistive technology provider about how assistive technology in the workplace can provide access and enhance productivity for people who are blind or vision impaired. This is the second workshop in a series of 3, and we invite you to join us for our third workshop in this series on Thursday, the 16th of May, on the topic of accessible and inclusive workplace cultures. BCA does provide a certificate of attendance for those who attend all 3 live workshops for your professional development profiles. Okay, so just before we get started, we will share a poll for you to complete that asks about your current knowledge base on this topic. And we will run another poll at the end of the workshop to see if there's a change in your confidence and knowledge. It is just one question with multiple choice answer, and responses are anonymous. We encourage you to be honest in your answers. And I believe Natasha has administered the poll now. Thank you, everyone. I can see you popping in your answers.
Sorry, Claire, it's Bettina. May I just remind everyone, if you're not currently on mute, if you could place yourself on mute. We're getting a bit of background noise. Thank you.
Thanks, Bettina. Okay. Okay, thank you everyone for completing that poll. We will be administering the same question and answer at the end of the workshop, like I said, just to see if if your confidence and knowledge has increased in this particular topic. So let's get started with reasonable adjustments in the workplace. And I'm just going to hand over to Maddie to kick us off.
Thank you, Claire. So perhaps it's helpful for us to begin by understanding what we mean when we say reasonable adjustments and assistive technology. A reasonable adjustment in the workplace refers to any changes in the work environment, processes, and work tasks that allow people to work safely and productively alongside their colleagues. Assistive technology is any item, piece of equipment, software, program, product system that's used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of people with disabilities. We'll hear more about the positive impact of assistive technology in the workplace for people who are blind or vision impaired from Peter shortly. It is important to firstly acknowledge that blindness is a spectrum and everyone is different in the adjustments in the workplace will differ from person to person, and they can change over time as vision may change or work duties may evolve. What we're going to talk about today is general good practice and universally acceptable. However, specific requirements will be individual to the person, and the best way to support them is through open and honest conversations about their needs in the workplace.
Thanks, Maddie. Okay, just to start us off today, let's touch on a few simple considerations for adjustments that you can provide in the workplace straight away that support people who are blind or vision impaired. So think about some simple adjustments on working conditions. And this can include things like offering hybrid and flexible working conditions in their contracts, and include adjustments such as fixed desk options instead of hot desking when in the office, working from home opportunities, and flexibility in start and finishing times, which helps to reduce the need for people who are blind or vision impaired to travel in low lighting and busy or crowded conditions, so those rush hour times. You can also consider some simple adjustments to work tasks. So the old saying, there's more than one way to read a book, and so the metaphor applies here. There is more than one way to complete a work task. The specifics, of course, will depend on the individual, but the best place for employers to start is from a mindset of being open to communication and asking the individual questions, and offering flexibility in how work tasks can be completed. As long as the end result is the same, the path to get there can be different for different employees. Also think about some simple adjustments in terms of accessibility in your building and to your facilities. So, for example, providing clear and high contrast signage with Braille, clutter-free and simple office layouts, and options of lifts, ramps, and stairs that meet those accessible building standards. For people who are blind or vision impaired, it's important to also consider adjustments in your workplace around wayfinding. So providing clear instructions on access to the building or office, and navigation advice for any construction that may be happening at your workplace. People who are blind or vision impaired, they may use a cane or a dog guide. Dog guides are highly trained working dogs that provide mobility and movement support to and from the workplace and around the building itself. There is also technology known as Bindi maps that can be used in the workplace. Bindi maps use beacon technology in the building to help people who are blind or vision impaired navigate around the space safely and independently. For those of you who aren't aware, support can be accessed for implementing workplace adjustments through Job Access and the Employment Assistance Fund. So reasonable adjustments specific to the individual can be discussed with Job Access. Job Access is a government system that provides assessments and financial support for employers to put in place modifications and workplace adjustments. To be eligible for Job Access currently, the employment needs to be expected for 13 weeks or more, and for at least 8 hours a week. The Employment Assistance Fund can help with modifications such as the cost of making adjustments to your physical workspace, modifications to work vehicles, special equipment for the workplace, including assistive technology, information and communication devices, Auslan interpreting services, specialist services for employees with specific learning disorders and mental health conditions, disability awareness training for the workplace, including vision impairment awareness, mental health awareness, and first aid training. Following a job access assessment, you may be introduced to an assistive technology provider such as Quantum, who we will hear from now, who are experts in blindness and low vision assistive technology in the workplace. So let's now move over to introducing our guest speaker today, Peter Cracknell, who is the Manager of Vision and Blindness Technologies at Quantum. Welcome, Peter, and thank you for joining us today to share your knowledge and insights on this topic. I'm going to hand over to you now.
Thank you so much, Claire. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, well, thank you.
Great. Okay. Thanks very much for inviting me. So as Claire was saying, we at Quantum RLV are essentially equipment specialists. We have specialized in mainly vision impairment equipment and software for 30 years. We provide equipment trials and advice in education and also in the workplace as well, and of course to private individuals at home and through the NDIS scheme and so on. But our speciality is just a deep product knowledge about assistive technology. So I'm actually here at Brisbane. My site support centre is here in Brisbane, but we have our head office in Thornley in Sydney and also an office in Mount Waverley in Melbourne. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a short slide presentation so I can talk to that, just to give people a bit of an overview of what we're talking about with assistive technology. So I'm going to try and share my screen. I think that may need to be enabled, Maddie. I think it's come up with a message about host disabled participant screen sharing.
Yes, I'll ask Natasha, can you make Peter the host for this, please?
And while that's going on, I'll share some slides and talk to those. But then after that, I will actually go and actually take a camera on some of the typical equipment that we use in the workplace, just to give a bit of a flavour of the shape and size of these devices and to talk about how they're used. All right, great. Let me try now. Can you see that first slide?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Peter.
Right. So as I mentioned, Quantum, we have like a national reach. We're actually a separate business division of Vision Australia. We focus as an equipment specialist. So that's our role. We don't have any occupational therapists or orthoptists or any of those sorts of services, but of course we work not just with Vision Australia, but also with all the other agencies. That's the guide dogs agencies, independent occupational therapists, O&Ms, and Blind Citizens Australia. Every agency across the land we collaborate with to deliver outcomes as best we can. That includes in the home, in the workplace, and school visits. We focus on people with low vision, people who are blind, and people with reading differences. So this is something that's often overlooked. And the reason why our name, Quantum Reading Learning Vision, has the learning in it is partly because there are many things that can impact on reading, including dyslexia, aphasia, and also some motor neurone and acquired brain injuries and so on that impact on the ability to read. There are many people in the workplace who have got various physical or neurological conditions, and assistive technology can help them. Some of the assistive technology that we use for people with low vision and blindness, it can also flow over to assist people who have other reading difficulties. A lot of the things that we try to reframe here is about productivity rather than on the specific medical condition that somebody has. So some of the numbers we have on the screen here about visual acuity being 660 or worse and so on, these are medical measurements, but really in our work we're more focused on how it affects people's productivity in the workplace and what we can do to make them use the systems that are in place by either adding software or some technology to make them be as productive as their sighted colleagues. So just some brief definitions. Low vision is really around where spectacles cannot improve people's reading ability. We start to talk about low vision. So we shouldn't forget that correct prescription of spectacles for computer work especially is particularly important. And if it's not correctly prescribed and that people are using the wrong spectacles in the workplace, that can lead to all sorts of reading fatigue and other conditions. So we should think more broadly rather than just about disability, but include many of the other assistive technologies like spectacles that we take for granted. What assistive technology is available? Adjustments to lighting in the workplace can be really quite critical. They can make a massive improvement for people just in the general ambient lighting, but also in task lighting. And there are various services within the agencies and with Vision Australia that can advise on those sorts of workplace environmental conditions. I mentioned about spectacles. There are also optical magnifiers. We're all familiar with optical magnifiers. We simply mean by that magnifying glasses. They're rarely used in the workplace because electronic magnifiers do a much better job. And I'll be showing you briefly some of those electronic magnifiers in our site support centre in a moment. For people who are, I'm just going to admit Samantha, for people who are essentially find that they cannot use magnification to access text on screen or on paper, we do have text-to-speech devices that can convert text, either digital or paper text, to spoken output. And the converse of that is speech to text, where people can speak and it be typed into the computer. So, for example, Dragon Naturally Speaking and Windows Speech Recognition are some technologies that are commonly used where people have typing difficulty. And this goes to the point I was making before, that we have many people who don't identify with a disability as such, but who could take advantage of some of the productivity technology, assistive technology. In fact, some of these technologies like Dragon and other text-to-speech can be deployed for everybody and give them an advantage, just as we're seeing with artificial intelligence, with ChatGPT and so on, giving productivity advantages. We also have wearable devices. These are headsets or spectacle-mounted cameras that can either magnify or convert text to speech. So they're highly, highly portable. We have Braille and electronic Braille devices, tactile graphics for mapping and for the display of charts and other data. And of course, I mentioned computer software. Quantum is the master distributor for the JAWS screen reading program, which is the screen reading program that's most widely deployed for people who are blind in the workplace. And part of that software is also magnification software as well. So it's possible to use the Zoom text magnification software to magnify anything on a regular Windows computer, spreadsheets, internal customer management systems, databases, all of these can be simply magnified or enhanced to make them very accessible to people with low vision. One of the things that's common to a lot of our vision technology is not just magnification, but also contrast. A lot of people with low vision conditions actually cannot really read normal contrast print very successfully, and they need it to be adjusted to a high contrast background, usually a dark background, a black background, for reasons of reading fatigue and glare minimization. These are very similar to the sorts of things you can see in just regular mainstream windows where people might apply a dark theme for reading comfort. And it's very much the same, maybe to a larger degree, for people with low vision. Once again, for reading comfort and to ability to discern numbers and characters and so on. Often a high contrast background, perhaps in a different color, can be very, very useful, and it's very easily achieved. For example, going back to that, I personally, though I don't have a vision impairment, I use my computer with a dark background for my reading comfort. And it's something that could be enabled just within Windows itself. You don't need special software to do that. And it may lead to, just as we would maybe adjust the ergonomics of your seating and your ambient lighting, simple changes like dark themes can be reading comfort can certainly be improved. So moving on to some of the actual electronic devices, and I'll start with electronic magnifiers. So electronic magnifiers, they can be as small as 3 inches screen, and it's highly, highly portable. And that sort of thing would be used just to maybe open a filing cabinet, pull a filing tab out, and just inspect the tab on the folder. Or it could be going to the fax machine and just seeing what's on the display there, the LCD. All the way up to 24-inch and beyond. Now, 24-inch screens, of course, they're desktop. They don't move, but in the middle, there is a range around from about 10 to 16 inches screens, which are much more portable. Some of them are just electronic magnifiers, and some of them have got some computer capability as well. So they can all change the magnification and the contrast. Some of them have got text-to-speech as well. And these sorts of devices are widely used in the workplace for everyday tasks, for looking at correspondence, printed spreadsheets and that sort of thing. Very easy to use, very low learning curve, and frequently also used at home. So the individual is already well versed in the use of this type of technology. So some of the devices that are used in the workplace are already used in schools and universities. So a person with vision impairment often comes fully familiar with their technology. So they hit the ground running when they come to the workplace. Of course, there may need to be adjustments and integrations, and that's where workplace assessment processes can come in. And as Maddie mentioned, this is all part of the job access process. Quantum and other people can assist by lending equipment, by giving advice, and talking to the IT people if necessary, just so that people of the organization is fully prepared for the employment of the person with a vision impairment or person who is blind. Some of the devices shown here are the larger screen ones, but also some of them are portable. The child that's holding the camera on the device on the desk, he's actually aiming it at a distance. He's aiming it across the room, not at the paperwork, so that he can see the teacher's face and the blackboard. And similar approaches we use to participate in meetings where there's an overhead PowerPoint presentation, or something similar where the employee needs to participate in the meeting by zooming in on the overhead PowerPoint or whatever data is being displayed there. Text-to-speech devices, they can be integrated into magnification devices, or they can be much smaller portable devices like the one shown on the slide here, the Orcam Read. That's a pen-sized device that you can just look at paper. You can snap paperwork or electronic screens or even distant screens and have it immediately read out loud. There is a speaker in it, but you can also Bluetooth it to earphones for privacy as well. It's a very, very fast and accurate text-to-speech, highly portable, and also, importantly, it's totally private. It's not possible to download the information from this device. It's purely exists for the user, and when the device is switched off, any information is erased. And this is important because some environments are secure. For example, a call center or a bank would not want data to be leaving the building or transmitted or downloaded in any shape or form. And this is an important consideration that we take into account. Some of the text-to-speech inventions can be actually mounted to the side of spectacles. They're very discreet. They can give additional features, for example, navigation assistance, facial recognition. And facial recognition is actually quite an important consideration in the workplace, so that you have a heads up when one of your colleagues is approaching and you can interact with them in a more natural way. So rather than relying on everybody to announce who they are, which isn't a common courtesy, and that should be something that should be part of normal practice, it's also nice for the employee to have the independent capability of knowing who's approaching them. There's also some sort of Star Wars type looking headsets that are coming onto the market. These are essentially magnifiers that can zoom at a distance, perhaps on an overhead PowerPoint, or maybe even a lecture or in a larger conference or something like that, to be able to zoom in and out on things at a distance and or things in your hand, paperwork and so on. These devices have been around for a few years, but they have traditionally been quite bulky. The trend now is to more acceptable sort of like sunglasses type equipment. And you may already be aware of the Apple Vision Pro device that it's not yet released in Australia, but again, that's aiming to be more acceptable in that it looks smaller, it's less of a barrier to colleagues because people are not wearing a ski mask that presents a barrier between colleagues. That it looks more like sunglasses. Some of these devices are now getting artificial intelligence so that the surround can be described orally, stairs going up, door to the right, handle on the left. And if there are symbols on the doors, such as a boardroom or a broom cupboard, they can also be described as well. This is very much at the forefront of AI, artificial intelligence, for people with vision impairment and people who are blind. And we're just at the start of this very exciting time for wearable devices that can describe the scene in front of you. Also, Braille. Braille is not just paper Braille. Braille is also electronic Braille. And this means that electronic Braille displays can become the computer screen for a blind person. In fact, it's possible for a blind person who reads Braille to connect a portable electronic Braille display to a laptop. They could have the laptop closed or open. It's irrelevant from their point of view. And they could be typing on a regular keyboard or on the keys on the Braille display and reading on the Braille display the information on the computer screen. Very, very powerful. And it's certainly particularly powerful for people who are content creators, or perhaps who are very heavily involved with code, programming code, who need accuracy. They need to know that what they're seeing is exactly what is on the screen and what is on the page. We have people at very high levels of management who use these Braille displays, enabling them to access complex content with accuracy. So there's quite a range of options there for electronic braille. There's also tactile graphics, where either on paper or now on electronic braille displays to have representations of data like graphs and charts and flow charts, but also floor plans and other orientation and mobility diagrams, so that a blind person can have access to similar data and move it in their workplace safely using tactile graphics. And software, I've already mentioned the JAWS program. JAWS stands for Job Access with Speech, and it's one of the first screen reading programs and certainly the most popular in the workplace and in education too. And there are various other programs that I'll mention here that are related to productivity. So for example, Read and Write can scan and speak documents and computer screens, but also highlight, summarize and declutter a lot of the more complex documents, which can be a benefit for people with reading difficulty. There are also word prediction tools and dictionaries and so on. And increasingly, we're seeing some of these ribbons that just overlay computer use used by regular employees just for productivity purposes. And this is an example of a crossover from vision tools into just the world of work for everybody. And I mentioned Dragon Naturally Speaking as a speech to text, and of course there are similar options within the Microsoft and the Apple platforms as well. So that's just an overview with the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing and come back to me, and I'm going to, if I've got time, to just do a quick tour of some of these devices, unless Maddie, anybody had any questions prior to me doing that? No.
Peter, I'm happy to pin your other video and you can give us a quick tour of some of the tools you've got there.
Okay, will do. I'm just going to do that now. I'm just going to bear with me a moment. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to hand my camera to my colleague, Leanne. I'll just introduce Leanne. Here she is. So she's going to be my camera today. This is our site support centre here in Brisbane, and we have the similar layouts in our other site support centres at Sydney and in Melbourne. A lot of this equipment we also take directly to the work site and do workplace trials and so on. Software we can also easily deploy on a trial basis just to see whether it would suit and integrate with existing systems. So I'm going to just start. We'll come around this way, Leanne. I mentioned portable devices. They go from everything from a small 3-inch screen device that can just go in your pocket. A very popular size is around about 6 inches, which again, highly portable, but actually has a good field of view and can be used not just on your desk, but from one location to another. And here we can use magnification and change contrast, as I mentioned before, just on all of our devices. And they go up in size, 8, 10, and up to 13. What we find in the workplace is a need for a small footprint on the desk, but also some ability for it to be transported around from desk to desk or to a meeting room. So for example, this 13-inch device can be folded up and easily transported from room to room. It's also doesn't look very overpowering. It has a distance camera for meetings where you can zoom in on the presenter. Plus, you can put your paperwork underneath here. This very popular format around about that 13-inch size. But of course, there are also more industrial sized machines. These do not move much. They are fitted to the desk. They have enormous magnifications, contrast, and so on. And they have a sliding tray that enables smooth reading left and right, back and forth, and so on. They can also be integrated with computers as well to be an additional screen. I mentioned the OrCam portable device. This is how small it is here. It can be fitted into a stand as well and connected to a computer if required. And it's just a matter of pointing, pressing, and in a moment it will speak out loud. Reading speed up and OrCam, my own mouse speak and read fast. And it's as fast as that. So that could be just in your pocket, and it could be used at desk or in a meeting or anywhere out and about, indeed, certainly in the community as well. I also mentioned the tactile graphics. So this is a tactile graphic that was produced by this printer. So this is just a regular printer that has a thermal capability, and it can produce tactiles, floor plans and so on, but also data, charts and so on. And that directly connects to Windows, so that as long as you've got a Word document or a PDF, you can just print it as a tactile. We also have large print keyboards. So for example, this is very popular for people with low vision. It's got a black large print on yellow caps, but it's a full keyboard. This particular model has also got an extra light that just plugs in just to illuminate the keyboard there as well. And we have various others, Bluetooth keyboards, and also ones for people who have dyslexia or other difficulties. And finally, at the cutting edge, or the frontier of tactiles, we have electronic braille displays that have got multiple lines. They can show diagrams, but they can also show braille as well, which could include perhaps a spreadsheet or something similar that the device is connected to. So essentially, this is just a very brief overview of the sorts of technologies that are available. It's a very mature industry. We've had great results in multiple workplaces, from places in factories all the way through to people at high levels of management who use technology very successfully to participate in the workplace. I think that's it for me. I'm going to hand back to Maddie.
Thank you so much, Peter. I will just remove this spotlight. So you are off camera, I believe. But thank you so much for sharing that. And that tour was really, really interesting to support the PowerPoint that you showed in the lead up to it. So that brings us to the wrap up of our presentation today. And what we will do is we'll quickly administer the poll that we ran at the start of the session to see if there's been a change in your knowledge. And then we will open up the floor for questions for Peter or for an eye to the future. So I'm going to launch the poll now. Give me 2 seconds. So we're going to launch this poll. And if you could just take a moment, read the question, and then we'll open for questions. I can see some of those results coming through. And what I'm seeing as they're coming through is that there has been a change in your knowledge, and that's fantastic. So we will open up the floor now. If anyone does have any questions for an eye to the future or for Peter, if you'd like to come off mute or to raise your hand, if you would like to contribute. To raise your hand, there is the symbol, or you can press the keyboard command Alt-Y holding the Alt key and then the Y key, and we will come around to the questions. We have a hand up from, I think it's Leanne.
Yes,
Hello.
thank you. This is actually for Peter. I have a client who uses JAWS, and they have a HR platform, which is a Ceridian platform. Now, the understanding is that JAWS is accessible to that, but they are 6 updates behind.
Oh.
And JAWS isn't accessible. He cannot access it at all. Obviously, they won't allow us to access their HR system and try and test out other options. Do you know where I can go with this?
Well, I'd be very happy to take that offline and work with you on that. But certainly we can provide trial software, fully functional trial software, so the latest version, for them to install on the system.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we can also provide advice about, once that has happened, if there are any sticking points there. A final point would be that it's also possible to engage scripters who could make script changes to JAWS.
Yes, so sorry, I do have a name of a guy to do the scripting. However, with this agency, as I said, their Ascender program is like 6 updates behind.
Oh, yeah.
So they won't let us access that system. And they go directly to Ceridian, and they're saying that it's going to cost to even get a person to talk to us from Ceridian, and the answer could be no. They, you know, like we actually are at a kind of a standstill. So that particular agency has asked us to trial other reader software.
Okay, yeah. Every case is different, so we're really happy to work with you on that, even if the result is another system. So
yep.
So it could be another screen reader or another solution. But also, if it came down to like on-site visits, that sort of thing, we understand that in a lot of environments, of course, you can't remote in or anything like that. So it has to be on-site. So if it came to that, of course, we could quote for an on-site visit to send one of our more technical people to assess that, whether that's from within some my colleagues at Vision Australia or whether it's within Quantum, it'd be the most appropriate way of doing it.
Okay, that would be great. So I guess originally what I'm asking is, I don't know where to go and what to do. So you're happy to help me kind of figure out where we can go, because this guy's been working for the department for, I don't know, well, it's about 16 months.
Well,
and we've been trying to get this going. I really didn't know where else to go. So yes, you can at least help me try and find a solution.
No worries. So I've got, I think on this, shall I put in chat my contact details? And I'm happy for other people to contact me directly as well. Let me just see.
And whilst we're doing that, were there any other questions from participants in the room at the moment? And that's okay. If anything comes up after, please feel free to email us. We will be circulating a feedback survey as well if there are any questions that have come up. So before we do wrap up and say goodbye for today, let's just take a moment to think about what support do you or the decision makers in your organisation need to take the next step in hiring someone who's blind or vision impaired. And Eye to the Future is a no-fee employment program that can help you take this next step. So please do reach out, and it can be questions such as what's just been asked now. It could be other questions that are relevant to your organisation or where you're at the moment. We have a number of job seekers across the Eastern Seaboard who are looking for opportunities with employers who think differently about diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And if this is you, please send us an email to bca@bca.org.au after this workshop with current and upcoming opportunities in your organisation that we can discuss with you. We would like to take this opportunity to thank our guest speaker, Peter, and for every one of you who have joined us today coming along and for your contributions to our workshop today. We hope you found it useful, and by the poll, it sounds like you did. An Eye to the Future offers a suite of education and support services for employers. If you'd like to engage in any of our services to help enhance the diversity and inclusion in your workplace, please reach out. And again, we're available via email bca@bca.org.au or our phone number 1800 033 660. We will be circulating a feedback survey shortly for you to complete, and we do value your views on today's workshop, and we do use your feedback to inform our future workshops. So we really do appreciate your input there. If there's anything you'd like us to cover in upcoming workshops, please include that in your feedback survey as well. Thank you again, and we hope to see you all at our third and final workshop of this series, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
That concludes today's webinar. You can find out more at eyeToTheFuture.com.au/home. An Eye to the Future is an initiative of Blind Citizens Australia, informing, connecting, and empowering Australians who are blind or vision impaired.